that we do that. Yeah.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to you all. Welcome to everybody who is exhibiting, to our panel, to our members, and today's come to find out about Cornwall Women's Fund. For those who don't know me, I'm Anna Jay. I'm one of the founders of Cornwall Women's Fund. I'm joined today by Tina Bessel and Kim Carey, who is somewhere, who are two of my fellow founders, and from Tam and Cam from Cornwall Community Foundation, who administer the fund. Sadly, our fellow founders, Amanda, Izzy and Jackie, send their apologies, they're not able to be here. And one of our panel members, Fliss Loxley, for the Pearl Exchange, is unable to be here as well. They all send their apologies. I'd like to thank Take Point Training for hosting us this evening and for their support of the Women's Fund, and to Upper Deck for catering, and to our panellists and for all of you coming. We're here to celebrate International Women's Day 2024, the theme for which is Inspire Inclusion. When we inspire others to understand and value women's inclusion, we forge better worlds. And when women themselves are inspired to be included, there's a sense of belonging, relevance and empowerment. So collectively, let's forge a more inclusive world for everyone. As you'll all be aware, the Women's Fund supports women and girls across Cornwall and the Isles of Scilly. We run an annual grant scheme to improve the lives and a programme of events to inspire women and girls. And to date, through the generosity of individual donations, we've given a total of £37,310 to 13 grant-funded projects. We know that Cornwall Women's Fund is having an impact together, and if you came to our impact event a couple of months ago, which was online in January, you'll have seen that. It's an amazing event, and we had some amazing support and feedback afterwards. This year, following on from our Women Gaining Employment and Skills focus last year, we'll be focusing grants on members' second area of choice, which was women's mental health. And we particularly welcome applications around perinatal mental health. We'll be publishing the grant application timeline in the next few weeks on our website and via our newsletter. So please either sign up to the newsletter or just watch out via our website or social media. We'd like to encourage you to join our movement by signing up as a member. You can do that. There are things around the room that look like that. There are forms around the room, my beautiful assistant, that look like that. So you can either sign up and just subscribe to our newsletter, or we'd encourage you to sign up as a member. So you can either give a monthly donation or a one-off donation. Anything is welcomed. You know, £5, £10,000, whatever you can afford will be more than welcome. You'll have seen stands around the room with organisations in Cornwall who are supporting people directly. Please do visit and have a chat with people who are running the stalls. And find out more about some of the ways that they are supporting women's mental health across Cornwall in various different ways. So we've got Transformation Cornwall, Mind Cornwall, the Petrock, People Mind and Cornwall Pride. So yeah, do go and have a chat with those people there. We want to reach as many people as we can with a message to join us and support women and girls of Cornwall and the Isles of Scilly. So we really appreciate it if you could post on socials, tag us, and kind of hashtag at all those sorts of things on all the media channels. Finally, we've got two amazing volunteer photographers this evening, Liz and Shannon. So they have, thank you very much both. So they volunteered their time and skills to take pictures. We're also recording the event. If you don't want to appear anywhere, pictures may go on our website, they may go on our social media. So if for any reason you don't want to appear, please just let one of us know. So without further ado, let me hand you over to Tina.
Thank you very much, Anna. Dean, Frank, do you want to come and have a seat? Come on, because we're only here for about an hour. Come and sit down. Thank you, Anna, so much for starting off this evening. And this Cornwall Women's Fund, now annual International Women's Day get-together, is about celebrating women. And the International Women's Day, as you probably are well aware, is tomorrow. It's the 8th of March every single year. The theme for 2024, as Anna's mentioned, is Inspire Inclusion. And sort of the campaign theme of that as well is to invest in women and accelerate progress. And it's so fantastic to see so many new faces here, as well as some old friends, because this is the way that the word spreads. It's a ripple effect, and we're really delighted that that will hopefully happen through the way that Anna has described. She's already thanked our lovely Take Point hosts. Thank you so much, guys. You've been amazing setting up, and thanks, Hayden, for recording. Fantastic food in the upper deck, so please feel free to grab some nibbles again before you go, and our fantastic stall holders. So before we unpack what that 2024 themes means to us and to our panellists, it's my role to tell you a bit about our guests and a little bit about me. I'm Tina Bessel. As Anna said, I'm a founder member like she is, and the whole reason that we got involved in setting up this currently quite small organisation, but as you see, with massive impact, is to help people less fortunate than ourselves. You know, we're pretty lucky. We've got a roof over our heads, we've got food on the table, but that is not the story for quite a lot of people across the county, as many of you will already know. And as an RAF veteran, and then going into broadcasting, having the opportunity to go and study at Falmouth University to get a journalism qualification, I moved to Cornwall with my husband and young family because he grew up down here and he's seen huge changes. And I currently, weirdly, I literally am currently a lavender farmer, and we delivered triplets this afternoon. So at 4 o'clock, I didn't look very pretty. I don't look very pretty now, but this is the best you can do in an hour and a half to get yourself to Falmouth. But I'm here because I'm so passionate about what it is that we're going to do, and that thought of inspiring inclusion. Our esteemed panellists tonight, we're so fortunate. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Includes Kirstie Edwards, who is an elected councillor, currently Mayor of Falmouth, but an environmentalist. We've got Matthew Kenworthy-Gomes, who's the CEO of Cornwall Pride. He's a trustee of Black Voices Cornwall and an inclusion activist himself. And we've got Mairi McLean, who's chairman of the Royal Cornwall NHS Trust, and she's just come out of a board meeting all day to be here and is speaking at another International Women's Day tomorrow. But these fantastic people are so much more than just those titles that I've given them. So I'm going to ask them to just introduce themselves, starting with Mairi, if that's all right, and tell them a little bit, tell our audience a little bit about yourself.
Thank you. Thanks very much. And much as I hate to correct anybody, I'm going to, because it matters to me.
No.
When I became chairwoman.
Oh, sorry, chairwoman. Did I say man?
Yes, but it's all right, because I can tell you, calling myself chairwoman has been one of the most controversial things I've been.
I know that one.
Yes. You know, I'm not a man and I'm not a chair, so you know. Anyway, sorry, hate to correct you.
I'm glad you did. I'm so sorry.
Anyway, so but yes, I am
Hashtag
here.
my bio.
I am here because I do chair the hospital trust, which is an enormous privilege and an enormous amount of work, but it's so well worth it. And I'm not just that, as anybody in this audience would know about yourselves. And so it genuinely is a privilege to be invited. I'm here because I'm married to a Cornishman who was away from Cornwall for a lot of years and wanted to come back, and dragged me screaming. I might honestly admit, didn't want to come, thought the hospital was rubbish and thought people came here to die. And I can tell you, the hospital is not rubbish. People don't come here to die. And after 18 months of being here, my husband, who was brought up here, said, "Oh, all the reasons I left in the first place are still here. Could we move again?" No, definitely not. So I have rather too many children. I have a sixth. When we adopted, one who's nearly as old as me, but I kind of, you know, he counts. I brought up two of my own and two of my husband, and then we adopted a daughter from China as part of the one child policy. What a great thing that has been to do. Fabulous having a daughter. Love having all my sons, but lovely having a daughter. I've worked in lots of different roles and lots of different jobs. I love sailing. I'm not brilliant at it, but I love it. But, you know, I get up every day really excited about what I do, because I'm privileged to work with people every day. And so I've done lots of things. I'm a psychotherapist. I've done this, I've done that, done the other. I'm a social worker at heart. But mostly, I think mostly the way I would define me is that I'm a lucky person, as you just said, and I'm lucky for all the reasons you've mentioned, but also because I'm lucky to be optimistic, and I know that's luck. You know, some people aren't, and that's hard. And so I just think, as you said, and the principles of the Cornwall Women's Fund, because I am able and because I can walk and talk and think and be, then I want to be here for other people who can't.
Thank you for being here tonight.
Pleasure.
Matthew. You.
Thank you, Mary. Thank you, Tina. Yeah, so my name's Matthew Kenworthy-Gomes. Pronouns are he, him. I've been involved in inclusion kind of from a support element of LGBTQ plus community since I was 18. Because I helped set up the first LGBTQ plus youth group in Cornwall, which is called Legacy, with my friend Chris Mail and Chris Twigg. And then it developed into Shout, and now it's become the incredible organisation Yay, a youth group here in Cornwall, which is run by Intercom Trust. And that really came from an understanding of my life growing up and living in Cornwall. So I consider myself a firstborn immigrant. My mum's from Madeira and my dad's from northern Spain. Now those parts of the world are actually really affluent, but 70 odd years ago they were not, and they came to the UK as economic migrants, and came to London. I was actually born in London, sorry. But I do still consider myself as Cornish. I moved out, was brought down when I was 3, so I moved down to Newquay, and now close to Parampour. And life was really weird for me from a Hispanic background. When going to primary school, it was really interesting to go to a primary school and be bullied because of my ethnicity, and because I was speaking different languages. I only speak one language now, and that's how challenging it was. And you know, I kind of went through that primary school thinking, do you know what, I'm going to go to a secondary school and it's going to be fine.
We'll come back to that.
I came out at 14, it was definitely not fine. So that, the long story short, and then I think that really defined who I am. And I happened to go into Truro College, and I think this is really important from why I work in the group that I work with Pride. So the first couple of weeks of my time in Truro College, so 18, I literally went around the whole of Truro College to find the gays. Okay, so but my friend, one of my best friends, Charlie Vose, was in a chemistry lecture, and he came out of the chemistry lecture, and I was the physics lecturer, and I kind of knew who this person was and never met him, and literally like kind of almost pinned him up against the wall and said, "Are you Charlie? Yes. Do you know this person? Yes. Are you gay? Yes." Meet me outside in the smoking area, and that was all about bringing people together, because I was on my own. I was absolutely isolated around from all the elements of bullying and all the hate and all the challenges. I was absolutely on my own, and I wanted to be able to bring those people together. And I think every single thing that I've done from a personal perspective has always been about gathering, has always been about belonging, and that curation of safety. Because when you feel that someone is not necessarily like you, but has a similar element of experience as you, then you can feel comfortable enough to talk to them, to talk about your own experiences. And I've seen the value of what Pride is, and worked with Pride for the last 17 years in some capacity, and then really kind of molded it and changed its format for the better part of 10 years ago with my amazing husband originally, which was back there, and moved it across into the charity it is today, and saw the formation, the challenges. I want to say that we raised a lot of profile, or raised some conversations we wouldn't ordinarily think Pride would, especially from an ethnicity perspective. We were the first Pride to bring the black and brown stripes across from the Philly flag into the UK, to recognise the challenges that racism exists within the LGBTQ plus community. Marginalised, there's still challenges, I understand that, but we did, and it's actually, which was phenomenal, where a new organisation was born with Black Lives Matter movement and BBC being created, and the support of being a trustee there. And actually, I'm truly honoured to be and have been involved in both of those elements within Cornwall, and to see what we can do as progression. I think Cornwall absolutely isn't backwards. We've got so much innovation and so much energy and so much want to do better. It's how we celebrate that more and get other people to do it.
I'm looking forward to hearing exactly how you've done that, so that you can perhaps pick up some tips in areas of your world, but learn lessons from what Matthew's experienced. Kirstie, tell us about yourself.
So difficult to follow you two, but people like we only met for the first time the other day, already thinking about them, obviously online. Matthew I've known for a long time, we've done a lot of bits together, our worlds have overlapped. So I was also not born here, so shockingly I moved here again, drags kicking and screaming, when I was 14 from Southampton to the middle of the moors in Cornwall. Was not happy about that, but grew to love it very quickly, ended up wanting to stay, moved to Falmouth to do my degree in the mid-90s and stayed ever since, had my children. Also got 6 children, similar. I've got 2, 2 and 2, and I adopted the 2 that weren't mine when my marriage broke down. So I've had all 6 for a very long time now. They're from 24 all the way down to 11. So there's loads of them. 4 girls, 2 boys. So I've got the opposite to you. Very loud, noisy, combative, strong women I have raised, which is a real joy to be the parent of, but also awesome. They will be awesome women as they get older. So that's the family. So my story is long, complicated, but the short version is grew up in domestic violence. My parents split up when I was very young. That was obviously very challenging. I then was diagnosed with something called Still's disease when I was 14. I'd always been a very unwell kid, spent most of my teenage years in hospital, lots of bullying, very isolated, very similar, because I was the weird one that was in and out of a wheelchair all the time. So that was a really difficult. Went on, and every time they said no you cannot, I did. So I was going to dance school when I got my diagnosis, decided to throw myself into academia, so went down that route, ended up becoming a lecturer. And then my health took a really bad turn because the medication I was on started damaging my kidney. So I ended up very, very unwell for about 3 or 4 years, bedbound, really struggled, lost my job. I was lecturing at the uni, lost my house and lost my marriage in very quick succession in about a year. And everything just went horribly, horribly wrong. And for no reason really other than just life, you know. So I ended up inheriting all these kids and going, what do I do now? And it took me a long time to go back on the recovery. And what started that recovery was writing articles about what it felt like to be an invisible, disabled woman who'd had all these challenges. I didn't look disabled enough. I didn't look unwell enough. People just were, the narrative I got was very difficult. And I used the word sort of social capital quite a bit, that I was invited to everything as a young lecturer. Everybody wanted me at their dinner party, right? Because I had all these kids and I was a young lecturer, the youngest in my department. And all of a sudden that stopped, you know. It was like, you've got no social value. Your life is so small now. You're just in your house with your kids. So I started writing about it. That kind of took off pretty madly. And I realised I needed to do something because my mental health had gone quite badly. So I started going for short walks and picking up rubbish. And that changed my life because it set me on a path of where I've ended up here 8, 9 years later. So through doing that, I realised I might be brave enough to do a beach clean. So I did a beach clean. And then I was approached by Surfers Against Sewage to leave a plastic-free town. So I then ended up leaving Plastic-Free Falmouth. That then went absolutely mad. And then I ended up setting up my own community interest company, my own business that did non-recycled jewellery, did all these crazy things, started working at the University of Exeter as a research fellow in circular economy. And then somebody said, do you fancy going to be a counsellor? Because you're sat outside the room and you're always saying, you need to be doing this. Why don't you go in there and try and change things? So I did something slightly different to you, that I went, I'm going to take those experiences, I'm going to shout about them in that space. It's been a journey, which you'll hear more about later. And then I changed jobs last year and I now work in the voluntary sector as well. So which is amazing, because I feel like in my council role and in my work role, I'm able to take all those very difficult experiences and I use them to try and help other people. I'm changing my own narrative by saying, yes, I've survived domestic violence twice as an adult and as a kid. I've been homeless with young children, lived in a mouldy 2-bedroom place, pregnant with 5 other kids. Like, you know, I've been to these really difficult situations. I've been disabled and judged for that. How can I make it better? Because it was lonely. I feel you on that. It was lonely. I was so isolated. And I thought, God, if I can stop just one person from feeling like that when they're going through those experiences, then I've done my job. So that's why I speak out about it all. That's why I do all the things I do. And I will keep challenging it as long as I possibly can to make lives better for other people.
So haven't we got an incredible panel? I mean, yeah. Sharing it, and thank you for your honesty and for sharing your backstories, because it really does give context to what we're going to talk about today. So as we know, the 2024 theme tomorrow for International Women's Day is inspiring inclusion, and please feel free to ask questions as we go along with our panels. I'm going to ask them the same different questions. I'll try and spot you, to put your hand up and I'll kind of nod and I'll come back to you, let them finish what they're saying. But we want to start off with, and they've given you a little bit of a flavour of this already. So Mary, I'm going to go back to you if I may. Is can you tell us, is there a particular moment in your life that has maybe been exclusion rather than inclusion that has shaped who you've become? Because we've heard a little bit from Matthew and Kirstie in those moments. What about yourself?
Yeah, I've thought a lot about this, and there isn't just that one moment, although there is one that I'm just going to tell you about in a second. But I had a very a wonderful upbringing, parents who lived all over the world and dragged me after them, and that was challenging in itself. But I thought I'd start off with, at one point I was sent to a boys' school in China, and I was the only girl, and I was the only person who wasn't Asian, and I didn't speak Chinese. And that loneliness, although it's a different kind of loneliness, you just think, I can't even breathe, let alone speak. So that was quite an interesting experience. The second, and I've been isolated because of the work I've done and where I've done it. I've been isolated as a female because all the other people have been men, and I don't think in any conscious way meaning to be exclusive to me, but it's just that I wasn't the same. And I think it's that not sameness that makes you feel lonely. And the moment that really drove me, and it hurt me so much, was I was the only very senior woman in social services department on the top corridor, and I had, at that time, I think I had 4 children, and I was traveling quite a long way for the job, and I was getting into work quite early. I was doing my job, and I was going home with an hour's drive, probably about 5:30, having got there about 8. And this is the social services department where you're supposed to be nice to each other, And one day I went into the office of one of the support team, and I was going to pick something. I was going to get something. I dropped it on the floor, went down to pick it up, and I noticed this woman's dustbin. And it had scraps of paper on it, in it, with my name on them, saying what time I had arrived and what time I had gone home. And that was such a horrible message, and it hurt me because it shouldn't have been this way, but it was another woman who was clearly informing on me to God knows who, really. But it was just that sense of, oh, really? Let's not do that. And life is hard. Don't let's make it harder for each other. And I absolutely include men in that. Don't let's make it harder for each other. But just to feel that another woman would let me down. And I guess the other moment was when I was very, very young, and I was a student at university, and very strongly feminist. And I joined the Labour Party, and I went to the first meeting. And I was so naive. I thought that these people would be feminist as well. No, I was very young, but how naive could I have been? But again, it was that moment of, oh my gosh, oh no, surely you can't be misogynist and have all those socialist values. And well, yeah, that was really quite mind-blowing. So I'll stop there because we could all go on and on, couldn't we?
But you can see and feel the anxiety, even those memories from way back, even having you now, your hands are shaking. And these are the interactions that really do shape who you become. And it's really interesting you say about the loneliness, and you want to find people that enhance your tribe, but actually that doesn't actually inspire necessarily inclusion, because it's about culture change. And so shaping, you were talking about your school experiences earlier, Matthew, of going to find the other gays. In retrospect, was that the right thing to do, do you think?
It was the only thing I could do to survive.
Explain why.
So this might be triggering for people, so apologies. So when like even from like a really young age, I knew I was gay. So from when I was nearly 5 or 6, I would be looking and fixated on a male form rather than the female form in programs and films and stuff. I wouldn't tell anyone about it, and I absolutely always knew that I was different, and because of that difference, and I couldn't see that reflected anywhere. And not only could I not see it reflected anywhere, I had adverts on the telly telling me that I'm going to die because I'm going to get AIDS. And that reflection and that existence, I literally felt, and my mum's, she doesn't have this view anymore, but she's strongly Roman Catholic, as are my entire rest of my family. And that concept of, not the concept, but the reality of, and that belief is actually that person, I am gay, I'm going to go to hell. So I had no support system. And from an early age, I genuinely felt like I shouldn't exist. So my well-being, and like all the way through that, if I shouldn't be here, I don't deserve to be here, I deserve to be in hell, I deserve, and that's the thing that's constantly ringing, that ran through my mind as a young child. So for me to survive, I had to find the gays. I literally had to, because if I didn't, for me to feel like I could exist, or I could reflect, or I could know my own belonging, there wasn't anything else I could do.
And be seen.
And yeah, be seen, feel safe, feel who I was, because I know, but just before that time, before I was 18, I started going I went to, if anyone knows the nightclub Eclipse. Yeah. Okay, well, okay. So I went to it as it opened, and I definitely wasn't old enough to go there as it opened. I was 15. And that I was absolutely, I knew what I wanted and who I was, but at that age, should I have been experiencing what I was experiencing? And not only that, because of that element of existence, and I didn't see me reflected anywhere else, and I only saw myself reflected in this adult culture, I ended up going into further extreme situations as a young child.
So put yourself in danger almost.
Which I absolutely shouldn't, and experienced lots of things that I go, yeah, that was great. Now, was it great? Should I have done that? Should have I been in that position? So at 18, I purposely segregated, like, I'm not going to, and I was really fortunate because I had a relationship with my mum, and she kind of, one of the things that she said was, the only way you're going to get out of this is if you drop your friends. And I literally cut them and moved out of that situation. And if I didn't do that, I would have continued to go down this road. And then when I was 18, I just created a brand new friendship group. So yeah, I had to do that.
Reflecting back now, just sticking with you for a minute, would you have done anything different? And how do you think we are in 2024 for some 15-year-old child who's in your situation?
So I think, I'm not quite sure whether I would have not done the partying as much as I did, because I quite enjoyed that bit. But I maybe wouldn't have done the other stuff as much. But I enjoyed the companionship, and I think I would have made some choices about who I spent more time with. So I think I still would have done the same. And I think I still would have gone out to find the gays. I think I have this innate thing to bring the people together. And yeah, I think that's my personal passion. So I don't think I would have changed all that much.
Okay. I
think from a young person's perspective today, and I spend time with the youth groups that I do, and from a consultative and co-design elements, yes, it has changed, kinda. I think the bullying absolutely exists. And okay, so let's split this in the middle. You have an amazing group of women, you have an amazing group of emotional adult young people that are women that identify as bisexual, pansexual, and lesbian, and it's really warm and really kind. You go to gay guys and you get the one gay boy on his own, and he is ostracized still. And to have a conversation about the LGBTQ plus community to young boys is almost impossible. So has it changed? Yes. Has the dial changed? Yes. Has the narrative changed a little bit? Would I feel like I can exist? Yeah, I think I could. So as a young kid, I would see the reflection of, I suppose, like, yes, there's drag culture, but there's still like, what's the program? Oh, what was the lovely TV kids the coming of age program?
Oh,
The recent one.
oh my God. Sex
Yeah,
education.
but that's one of them.
Yeah.
But there was another one as well. Heartstopper, yeah. So there's that reflective thing that you just didn't get as a kid, and now you've got that. You've got that element of, oh, hang on a minute, that person's like me. Oh, I exist. I can be this person. I can have that strength to go and be different.
But also for young gay men, in Cornwall, you are doing that as well. Let's not take that away. That you are doing that for young gay men here.
Yeah,
you are.
Okay.
Let's move it to you, Kirstie. Is there a moment in your life that has, I mean, you spoke about a lot of your items. Is there one thing in particular that has been the catalyst for shaping you as an inclusion activist?
It's really difficult for me. I think similarly, there's been lots of small moments, and actually some of the more challenging ones have happened in the last 2 or 3 years. Picking up on something. So I come from a neurodivergent family. I've got autistic and ADHD kids, and I'm ADHD, so I find it really hard not to say the things in my head. So I've written them down, so I need to say them if that's okay.
Yes, of course.
So on the chairman, first thing I did was change our language to make it gender neutral. So we're all chair. I got a mayor's guidebook which says when he does this, when he does that, when he does that, and I was like, that ain't sticking around. Thanks very much. Let's do something about that. And I've created some additional roles and whatever. As deputy mayor, every time I introduced myself, they would go, confused, surely not. And so I made a comment, you'll probably remember this at the beginning of my mayor making last May, and I made a joke about it, because you have to make a joke about it, because it happens every time I meet everyone. I'm always in a minority because I'm a woman and because of my age. That's just a fact. You can't get away from that. So I made a joke about, you might notice I'm not an old white man, but I am actually allowed to be the mayor, just in case anybody was wondering, thinking it was hilarious.
Yes.
Obviously, all the people that I knew thought it was hilarious because my tribe. How many complaints and how many triggered old white men were there? Oh my lord, you've never seen anything like it. It was all over the papers. I've got so many dirty emails from people. And I was like, dude, you've just had like a tiny little bit of what I've been dealing with my whole life. Calm down. Like, so that was a moment. And I held my line and kind of felt okay about it and stuff, I guess. But one of the things I think I've really realised, and I said to somebody earlier, I feel safe here. This is my tribe. You are my people. You're the people that get it, and you think about this stuff as part of your life. And I thought we were much further ahead in society than we actually are, because I surround myself with great human beings. I don't have any men around me that are misogynistic, sexist, homophobic, racist, any of the isms. There just doesn't exist in my friends and family. So suddenly being in a role like mine, you are exposed to a whole range. Like, wait, people still say that and think it's okay? What, did he just say that and nobody challenged it? Yeah.
It's interesting because I worked in retail for a long time and I've never seen it in the retail sector so much.
Yeah.
And as I've gone into a sales role, which is a bit more upmarket, it's very heavy in that market, and it seems to be that more educated area that actually there's more sexism, which is it's quite gross to see.
It's horrible.
Seeing it within my own business and then correcting people.
Yeah, but it's very difficult. I'm having to pick and choose when I challenge it, because again, I'm always in the minority and I'm just the emotional woman. Oh my God, calm down. Oh God, if you got your period, oh my God, just a silly little girl. And I'm like, I'm 45 years old. I've got 6 kids. I've had more experience than bloody most of you in this room. Just sit down and shut up. That's what I feel like saying, but I'm very polite mostly. Sometimes I'm not, but mostly I'm very polite. But there's a lot of moments like that are difficult. So a pivotal moment, and it's not even so much about it is about inclusion actually, because I'm going to take you back to 21. first, well, 20, just started my final year of degree, find out I'm pregnant. That was interesting. Went on, had Jake, he's now 24, smashing his life, he's awesome. So graduated with a baby. That relationship was domestic violence. Had another baby, Beth, about 18 months later. 23 years old, having had the police called multiple times, I eventually grabbed one child under each arm and ran for a phone box, because that's what we had back then, called 999, and finally advocated for myself. Andy Hawking, any of you are local, amazing policeman, he was the person who responded, and he gave me the talking to of my life in that car on the way down to Penzance to go to refuge. By the time I got there, fortunately, somebody had stepped forward to take me and the kids in for that bit, and that was the moment that I realised that I deserved more, because my whole life had been about being invisible, disabled, being bullied at school, domestic violence in the home. Nobody listened in the 80s, like it just was just normal apparently. And it was the first time in my life that somebody said to me, you deserve more than this, you can have a better life than this, this isn't all you're allowed to have. And I'll be completely honest, it's been a massive journey. I still go to therapy now, and it's like this, because it's always going to affect me, all those adverse experiences, and it is very difficult, you know, obviously. But I think that I didn't think I was worth anything because of all those factors. And I am a white woman, we've never been rich, I still live in a council house, you know, I'm straight, I don't have any of those other factors, but equally there was all these other like sub things coming in all the time. So, you know, it's been that was definitely a point, and it did, like I said, it took me a long time to actually really get on my path. But I do feel like it's all that has made me who I am.
Okay, so because you're showing so much grit and determination and resilience, and you know, you've dug yourself out of that hole, but was there anybody in your life that was specifically an influencer or a mentor that you went, like, they can help me?
But personally, my nan got it. Loved that lady so much, and she was the only one really that picked me up, scooped me, looked after me, bless her soul. You know, she was my person. I think there was a couple of teachers at school, and again, if you go back to sort of the 80s, 90s, like when you go to disclose, it didn't happen the same as it does now. You know, I went and told the teacher, she took it on board. What do? Pull your parents in, who immediately lie, and then you get sent home with them. It was nowhere near like it is now, where that would trigger a safeguarding and there'd be all this stuff that happens. So I knew there was people out there trying to advocate, but it was almost like the system wouldn't let me. So there was that. And then probably in more recent years, it's lovely Jane Kirkham. I don't know if most of you hopefully will know her. We've been friends for about 8-9 years, and I just saw, and she's got a very different path to me, but I saw this person that genuinely cared, was putting her money where her mouth was, sort of got stuck in with trying to change things and change the system a bit and make it better, that I just thought, you know, I could probably do that too. And it's kind of her fault I'm here, really.
If any of you missed our impact evening, which is actually on YouTube, you can watch and listen to Jane's story herself. And she is desperately, and she's obviously succeeded with herself, trying to encourage women to get into the political scene and to have their voices heard, and to literally do that, advocate on behalf of not just women, but of everybody really. And so it's well worth a watch. Do go to our YouTube channel. I think we put it on our website yet. It's probably my fault we haven't put it on the website. I'll rectify that as soon as I can. But yeah, no, Jane is an amazing force of nature, but it's people that help other people.
It is. And you know, there's so much power in talking about. So I was very, very ashamed of a lot of the things that happened to me, around me, and the situations. I felt like it was my fault, and I now understand, obviously it's because you don't know what love is. You go for somebody that represents everything you experienced as a child, and you know, so I blamed myself. And actually, you know, it's quite difficult to come around from that. But there's so many people now, because I felt so lonely, going back to that alone thing, that I was like, if I share my story, and I tell you what, I do a talk about women in leadership, and I share some of this story. I don't stand particularly long on the domestic violence stuff. I use the statistic and I tell you that every single woman comes up to me at some point after that and either discloses to me something they've never told anybody before. They will share in the room with confidence, this happened to me, you're not alone. Or they'll email me and follow up and say, actually, because you talked about that, I now see that what I've experienced isn't okay and I'm going to do something about it. So there's so much power in being that person that does say it, because then all of a sudden you find all these inspiring people around you that go.
It goes back to finding the games
Yeah.
in the playground.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Finding your people that
finding your
kind of
people.
empathise
And if you're brave enough to take that step and speak out about all the stuff that we do, then other people feel seen and they feel like, oh, it's okay. It's not. I was talking to somebody earlier about something similar. Actually being, I'm not alone in that anymore. I think we were talking about postnatal depression and menopause being a word we're not allowed to say, and now it's like everyone thought they were mad, and now it's, oh no, it's just happens to everybody. It's just we didn't tell each other. And it's a similar thing, right? That actually saying it out loud, all of a sudden you go, oh no, that's me too, and that's okay because I want to be part of that team.
Yeah. Is there anybody in the audience that wants to chip in on a question or ask anything or share a story at this point before I kind of? Yes, please.
I've got a question for Mairi. I was really struck by you bending down and seeing that in the bin. I was really struck by that, and I wonder two things. Did you take that up with anything, or did you just keep that all in? And how did you move forward from that, or manage to work that out of your brain, or were you left with suspicions about your next workplace and the support team?
Yeah, that's a good question, isn't it?
Yeah.
No, I didn't tell anybody. All my colleagues were male. It did give me a deep sense of distrust, which I'd never had, and I think that's lucky as well. Trust first, doubt later. But it helped me because I was so clear that was completely unfair.
Yeah.
I was a perfectly decent woman. I had children. I was looking after my children. One of my children is very severely disabled, and it was like a fight from day one for everything and anything. And I was telling you earlier about how it was even a fight at Christmas. But so it helped me to sort of think, am I this person who deserved to be reported on? Because that's how I felt. Or actually, am I not? And I was able to, a bit, as you've just said, well, actually, I do deserve this, and I have done that, and I am, all of those things. And it made me so determined not to let other people do that. And then classically, because I'm a social worker, I felt sorry for the perpetrator. But I actually did. I actually thought, what does make another woman do that to another woman? And I kind of thought she probably just didn't know how hard it was to be in the job that I was in. Maybe she hadn't faced the same thing that I faced, but yeah, it was shocking. But lots of the experiences that I've had have been where I've felt I've assumed things which were wrong to assume. And what a great lesson it is. And I can see people nodding, it's lovely to have a tribe, but we still can't make assumptions about each other. No. We have to still check it out. Yeah. And just because, that process of making any relationship, you sort of first of all find out what you've got in common, and that's lovely. And then it's all great. And then you have to work out what's different about you. But I just think the stages, and I'm like you, I do a lot of work with women in leadership and actually women in governance. And one of the biggest things that I think we get wrong is that we have a tendency to want to believe the other person's like us. And we just have to check that out, because they quite probably are, but they might not be. Yeah. And so in a way, my mistake with that woman was that another woman wouldn't have treated me like that, but clearly she did. So yeah, I'll stop there.
Now you kind of want you to be surrounded by women that will straighten your crown rather than knock it off your head.
Oh, God,
use that.
And there are a lot of them out there that will knock the crown off.
Yeah.
It's difficult, and that I'm not going to talk about it in any depth, but that is what has been shocked me. Because I'm like, dude, we're supposed to have each other's backs. We're in a minority here. Like, come on, we're on the same team.
Yeah.
Like, why? Please don't. Yeah. And I want to believe that we stand together in our tribe. Was
there anybody else that had
I really using your own lived experience within your professional roles, specifically within strategic decision making. How do you create boundaries for yourself to not emotionally burn out? The council and the bureaucracy of the council at a point. I'm finding this emotionally really difficult. I'm hoping to come back to the sector again, and I guess, yeah, really badly off.
You want to start with that one, Kirsty?
It's really hard. It's really hard. The attacks come from places you don't expect them. It's emotionally draining. You have to have safe spaces to speak your truth in rooms with people you trust. My core tribe is very small, of people that will know everything that I'm experiencing, because for me, in my role, you're constantly walking the tightrope between challenging the patriarchy. I wear a sign that says dismantle the patriarchy, and trying to call out bad behaviour, but also trying to not make yourself a huge target, and also not making the role bad or not following the process and the protocols and all the rules that surround being in public office. So you have to constantly balance that. So it's about self-care, it's about having safe people, it's about laughing it off sometimes but challenging it and other times, and picking your battles a little bit. I mean, there's a great example I shared. So I've got a new cadet, young female cadet starting with me, and I thought I'm going to have to let her know what it's really like, because I don't want this poor young woman. And I was like, so be warned, when you were, particularly the veterans, they're lovely, they always ask me, why aren't you at home cooking the roast dinner? Why aren't you looking after your kids? Like, and it's just, you just have to kind of like, I just make a joke about it and just go, oh, well, I've been here working all day today, best believe I'll have roast dinner on the table when I get home, because we're a modern family. You know, you see, there's no point in that situation causing a scene, and so I make light of it in those situations. However, there's been other challenges. In fact, you two were there, Armed Forces Weekend. Been doing my civic stuff all day long. It's boiling hot. I'm in a ridiculous poofy dress, nowhere to hide my chain.
It's June, it was really
boiling, and I had to walk all the way through town because I live on the Beacon up here. The event was
I was very drunk.
I was pretty sober, you were very drunk, but also you were very brave because you were drunk. I got so harassed, and you both were. I was getting so harassed through town, people going, how do you expect anyone to take you seriously looking like that? How could you come on our naval ship with... And I had like literally a pantsuit on. It's not like I came on with a bloody mini dress or anything. It was a bloody military ship, for goodness sake. So much abuse. And it got to the point where I had a group of men around me. My daughter was there, 2021. She got to the point where she was effing and blinding at people, because obviously I'm still trying to, I'm in the role, I'm in the bloody chain, so I can't do anything too much. Fortunately, these two came, saw us in trouble, cleared the way, basically banged on the door of the pub that wasn't open and said, you need to let us in, she needs somewhere safe to go for a minute. And we sat there, I had a cry, and we pulled our socks up, and then we got me safely home. It was quite funny. Can I share what happened with the chain?
Very drunk. It
was amazing.
You remember, do you?
It was amazing. So I was wearing I was wearing a like a shoulderless, whatever you call that, strapless dress. Big puffy thing. There is nowhere to put this chain. There is no pocket. So the only thing we could think of was the little gap here. We started trying to together, shove it in the gap so somebody couldn't see it. It was too big and it was like spilling out. And I was like, well, this is not going to work, which is why we ended up going in the pub, right? Because that was the only place we could go at that point. And it was, and I thought, how amazing, because I wouldn't have let another man do that. And I was so grateful. He did ask, and he was like, there was consent. There was consent. It was like, what can we do to keep you safe? And that's what was amazing in that moment with you two. And I shared a similar bit of this story earlier, that actually in a space, military guys everywhere, some of them were giving me grief. 2 gay men came to my rescue and absolutely nailed it, kept me safe. And that's that allegiance and finding your tribe, right? Because even though we have different lived experience, we have the same lived experience in terms of those sort of situations.
And as a veteran, I find that very disappointing that level
there was
of behaviour.
loads of lovely people.
But the worst bit of it was you were physically shaken. You were in a real distressing situation. And I was there to go out and have a party and have a great night. And I'm seeing you there. I'm just like, actually, no, we need to change what we're doing. We need to do something.
Bringing it back to your,
but that sorry.
So Mary,
I'd just like to, and I agree with everything you say, and I want to go back to the point about how do you protect yourself as well, because I think there's something really important about jobs that any of us do. It's how we put boundaries, and that that business about when I was a baby social worker, I didn't think, you know, you should do that. I mean, I remember my mother said, you know, Mary, I've brought you up to be a lady and look at the job you're doing. And I was seeing quite a lot of things that were shocking to me. And I won't repeat some of them, but they were genuinely out with my comprehension. And I realised that, you know, social workers are trained to be non-judgmental. And I came to one point and I thought, you know what? Yeah, that's a good idea. And we broadly must do it. But also I need to protect myself here. And so that thing about working out how open and how giving and how much you can take in. But then, you know, it's that bit about if you're traveling with a child on an aircraft, put your own oxygen mask on first. You know, there's something counterintuitive. But actually, if you don't put some boundaries, then you won't be here to do it again tomorrow. Yeah. And but it's very, very hard to do. And I learned that so well when I was, again, really baby social worker. I was working in a very big, famous mental hospital, and I was chosen, goodness knows why, to go with a very poor, sad person who was not very well in lots of ways. And they wanted to turn the life support machine off on his wife. And so I was asked to go with him, which was not fine, but it was okay thing to do. And very traumatic. And I had all this teaching about how I was supposed to behave. And we were coming back from this event, and we passed a pub, and he said, can we go in for a drink? And I knew on every level that was not the right thing to do. And yet it was. And so I said, yeah, why don't we? And he had a half and I had a lemonade or some such thing, which was very stupid of me and totally unprofessional. I see that because, of course, the combination of alcohol and his drug didn't do well. And I ended up being carried by him on his shoulder all the way back to the hospital. But the reason I'm telling you that story is I learned about boundaries that night, because that night, after having done all of that, it was a Friday night, I was out with friends. I was in a pub having a lovely time, and I had a glass of wine in my hand, and I thought, how can I do this after what I've been doing? How can I sit here and enjoy myself? It didn't seem right, but it really taught me that actually it was okay to enjoy myself and to do what I was doing, and I could do it tomorrow. But it's been such a valuable lesson, and it does sound cold. I'm not cold, but you know, you just do have to make sure that you can get up tomorrow, and also that you can get up for your kids and your husband and your friends, you know. So there's something about keeping yourself whole for a whole load of reasons. It's really important that you do it.
I need you to be my mentor and how to set and hold boundaries.
Has anyone else got any questions?
Can I come on the boundaries question? So I think from I want to try and come in on the boundaries question. I can feel my husband's eyes just looking at me going, how's it going to go? So volunteering, so setting up Cornwall Pride and kind of volunteering in that role and having a full-time job, I had zero boundaries, like permanent zero boundaries, because every single moment outside of work, and probably a little bit inside of work, I would be doing stuff with Cornwall Pride. Developing it, having different conversations, trying to connect it with people, even with the 1 year event that it was, with all the other bits that we were trying to do at the same time. And what's naturally happened is the community around me have built me a boundary and gone, no, you have to go here, and actually we're going to make sure that there are some boundaries that support you, because your instinct is to keep going and to keep create that social network and that social support. So that's been absolutely incredible for me as a person. And actually I've in turn gone, actually, I probably need to chill out a little bit, or build some emotional boundaries to what's going on. But I think the biggest problem with that from a third sector perspective, when you are and definitely with a social work perspective, is actually when they start crossing paths, and Cornwall's really difficult for it not to cross paths, because we're such a small community. So actually when they do start crossing paths is if you build those boundaries so hard, you then don't have a life. So it's actually how do you flip those on? How do you work with them collectively and safely for your own being?
It's really difficult, and I think I experience it in a slightly different way, because a mayor is unpaid, right? It's a voluntary job, and it's basically like doing a full-time job on top of my full-time job. But people, because they think they're paying your wages or whatever, they think they own you 24/7. So
They do the
them,
same with me
they-
as a non-exec.
they're like, you know, you will reply to me at 11 o'clock at night. It is acceptable for me to phone you at 7 in the morning on a Saturday or a Sunday, you know, and it's very difficult because every time you set a boundary, oh, you're destroying democracy. And I'm like, well, no, I'm not. I'm just saying I need some time with my family, actually, you know. I break it to you, but that's something you like to be. But I've had similar experience to you. I'm terrible at setting boundaries. I've tried, I've read so many books, audiobooks, been in therapy about it, but I'm a people person, and I've had so many difficult experiences, and particularly that period when I was very, very unwell. I had no life. I wasn't living, and I know that my life is going to be shorter than most people's. And I'm like, while I'm well, I want to grab every freaking moment of it. I'm not missing any, because that could come again. So for me, there's that element for it as well for me, which is difficult. But I also have people around me that are like, hang on a second, no, you are not replying to that email. Or my family will now say, when somebody comes up and starts harassing me in Sainsbury's, which we're actually out for getting on dinner tonight, about to go for a walk, you know, come on, this isn't the time, you know. And I'm like, oh crap, yeah, actually I'm here as my mum with my kids.
And I think it is really, really hard as a politician, effectively. But I also think that people are adults, and I think people can be expected to behave well. And I think if you can say to people, do you know what, would you like to be rung up at 7 o'clock in the morning or approached in Sainsbury's? I'm sure you wouldn't. You can say it really nicely. No, I'm sure you wouldn't. But do you know what? Actually, it's your responsibility not to behave badly, because you're behaving badly.
Well, but that's another interesting thing there. So I've had a lot of challenging experiences, more than I will share in this public domain, and the amount of people that have said you need to grow a thicker skin, you need to not be so emotional, and I'm like, how about challenging the behavior that's causing me to feel like that, rather than expecting me to change who I am in that moment.
I just think you've actually raised a really good subject, because I think it does come into this whole the whole subject of the evening, how you build as female boundaries without purposely excluding yourself as well. You know, and I've worked at a senior level now for far too many years. I've been called a bitch. I'm just there to look pretty. So I've actually told that to my face. It's the same. I'm not more intelligent. You know, I've heard it all.
How rude.
And actually, I went through a number of years building loads of boundaries where I was told I was heartless. I'm the person that goes in and just deals with the really hard messages and stuff like that. And actually, that's really hard, because you're purposely then excluding yourself from, actually, I'm not going to get dragged into this, and I'm going to rise above it, but I'll rise above it in a way where it'll be, I'm just going to get on and do it. So actually, coming back, you can experience the other side. Is that burnout is I'm really lonely, but I've made myself really lonely because I now don't know how to break down those boundaries and allow myself to get in. And I will say, you raised a really good point earlier around the kind of the discussions between the younger females who are dealing with this, you know, with that journey into their sexuality versus the males. And unfortunately, there is still this huge divide about emotional intelligence and talking to people and that is a privilege, being able to talk to somebody and educate people into how to treat people with politeness. And we are all adults. Unfortunately, people don't realise that. But actually, being able to surround yourself with people, I will say, comes with experience, and being able to say, actually, I'm not going to take your crap anymore, and I'm okay without you in my life. And that unfortunately has to come from learned experience. But also being able to say, actually, I'm okay being vulnerable, but I'm going to be vulnerable with you, and I'm going to be here, and we're going to support each other. And I think that does come from having to break that down. But it really is it's a really important subject, and it's not a one size fits all.
Absolutely. And there's different reasons for it as well. So the reason I was similar to you in that I was struggling like with being accepted and whatever, but I basically built up those walls because I was told I didn't matter, and my voice wasn't heard, and I didn't feel like I had the right to have a voice. Yeah. So, and I wasn't able to share or show how upsetting my life challenges were because I was so fearful of the consequences. So I've worked really hard to be open, emotional, allow myself to validate my feelings, call out other things when they're around me. So I'm buggered if I'm going to have a load of men telling me now that I'm too emotional and I'm not allowed to be like that. Do you know what I mean? I've worked too damn hard to be able to be vulnerable and to be emotional and to speak my mind. I mean, I ain't going backwards. Thank you very much.
And that's brilliant. And it's great to see passion and environment and to hear your own experiences here. It's so apposite that we're here at Take Point Training having this discussion, because as a military-led company that teaches leadership training, they focus on psychological safety, emotional intelligence, and there are incredible tools out there, and a lot of it needs to come from within first, as you've heard our phenomenal panelists explain what has been their triggers, for want of a better term, and how it has shaped them. I think that I'm going to ask you each for your one takeaway in a minute, but I think the takeaway that I would say from the word that I've heard every single one of you say here today is, I don't deserve this, or I didn't deserve that, or I didn't feel like I deserved that. And actual fact, our self-esteem is so important, and that is what is where our mental health can degrade when that is suppressed. And you've really got to unpack internally who you are and how you interact, because one of the takeaways I'd like to just give you is something called the drama triangle. If you've never heard of it, it's Dr. Stephen Kaufman. I honestly 100% recommend it, because there are times in our lives where we will be a victim, or we will gravitate to being a rescuer, or we will be a persecutor, or we will be persecuted by someone. And that is a really unhealthy relationship. And those relationships can change, but only if one person in that triangle is prepared to make that change and to make some acknowledgements. Am I being a persecutor? Am I acting as a victim here? How can I change this dynamic? And you know, we've all talked about your mum said to you, you've got to cut those friends because they were persecuting you, you know, and you needed to find your tribe of rescuers, but actually coaches is the right answer, as people that you could work with. And so I think that there's an awful lot here, and we've got fantastic stalls here who will, you know, with courses over there that are free from, you know, from Healthy Cornwall. Please go find out about them tonight before we go. But let's go back to that point of what's, very briefly, if I may, because it's I want people to have a chance to mingle. What is your one takeaway that you would say to our audience about supporting your mental health and inspiring inclusion?
Be brave. Don't be scared to share your story, because your lived experience is what connects you to others. That's where the magic happens. So I think that, and yeah, be brave enough to advocate for yourself. I've spent a lifetime advocating and protecting others, and only recently have I started doing it for myself. Yeah, and that's a big thing. Don't be afraid to advocate for yourself, because people will stand behind you and make sure they catch you if it gets difficult.
Thank you. Matthew.
We haven't spoken about this at all this evening, and so it's completely like side-wide.
Out left field.
Yeah, that one. out left field.
Pointing left.
That way. From a mental well-being perspective, but the thing that's changed my well-being completely has been exercise. Has either been running or going to the gym, or not necessarily connecting with the outdoors, because I'm now indoors doing the gym, but yeah, absolutely, exercise and healthy living, it has dramatically changed my perspective of my personal mental well-being, and I employ anyone that doesn't go out and exercise to do some form of walking or whatever you may want to do, and to inspire inclusion. I think we have incredible people here, and one of the things that we have is we're speaking within a glass box. We're speaking to people that understand this conversation already. So it's not about what I want to say, and we're tidying up. I love Jackie May, so she's CEO of Women's Centre Cornwall, and I have been at the last 3 Survivor Nights. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Or Reclaim the Nights, or maybe more as well.
We've got one coming in Falmouth.
Yeah,
in November, wasn't it?
And I think the last time that I was there, I bumped into Jackie, and I was just in tears, and I was just so sorry. Because I'm a man, and it felt like, what flaming heck. But for me, it's not about men, it's about how we change the system around men, and how we get them to look at the system differently as well, because they're not doing anything wrong. It's the environmental elements that we've been created into. So how do we change those systems? How do we change that narrative of systems? And when we change that narrative of systems, that's how we can inspire further inclusion and change that dialogue as well.
Can I give a note on that?
Go on.
So that your triangle, it connects between your triangle and that. So an example of that is the reason my ex was violent, because his dad was violent to him, his dad was violent to him. The reason I left is I didn't want my son to think it was okay to behave like that. Long journey, fast forward 20 something years. Last year, my ex-father-in-law, I still see them all the time, came, and this is an old man, high up in police force, in tears, and said, "Thank you for changing the story of our family. Wow. You've broken that trauma cycle, and that my grandson will never do that, and nobody else in our family line will ever do that again. And that's because you were brave enough to step out, wow, challenge it, change the story." So it's so important that just changing that narrative, and that is how you change the system.
Same with my family.
My
dad as well. Dad, great granddad. Exactly the same.
So it is possible to change it.
And it's so powerful because all of the academic research around social constructivism absolutely proves that it works. That we change the story, we change the words, we change the language, back to chairwoman, not chairman. But we just tell it differently, and we can. And I know you're trying to finish, so I'll try to rush on. I mean, mine is believe in yourselves. I in a funny way, I wish this wasn't International Women's Day, because we're wonderful, but lots of men are wonderful too, and I don't want to be exclusive of men. But it is that believe in yourself and believe I can. And I think, resilience, tenacity, not giving up. But just that there's a wonderful book called Oh, the Places You'll Go by Dr. Seuss. Some of you will know it. If you don't know it, go and get it and read it. It's fabulous. And it's like a modern day version of Pilgrim's Progress, which I was kind of brought up with. But it is about the ups and downs of life, and it just told in verse, and it's so lovely. And oh, the places you go, you've got feet in your shoes, you've got brains in your head, you can do anything. And so that belief that you can. And was it Obama went on about the I can? I don't know, but it just seemed really important. I can thing. And that self-belief, I'm sure it does come from, having good parents or having good adults somewhere in our lives. And so the other thing I feel strongly is, let's give that to other people. So let's give it to, I believe in universal parent and universal child. I really think we can just offer those messages around, because you really can. And if you think you can't, I'll give you a hand until you can, because you can. And so,
it's lovely. There's a great phrase, isn't there? It takes a village to raise a child. Yeah. And, let's make that village. Surround yourself by good people. I heard one of you say that earlier as well. Well, you've heard it. Be brave. Exercise, break out of that glass box, and please go out of here. This is a glass box, and go and tell other people about what you've heard tonight, what your takeaways are, your personal ones. I'd love to hear, come up and talk to us about them afterwards, and take that belief, because not just I can, we can.
Yeah.
And we would love it, thank you Anna for the reminder, if because it is International Women's Day tomorrow and we want to inspire inclusion, there is always a photograph with a you know, whatever it might be. This year the Inspire Inclusion is to make like a heart shape over your heart. So I wondered if you wouldn't mind, if you're willing to stand up where maybe from the ladies who are photographing, where would be the best place to grab us this way? So if we turn around and you, everyone stands up and turns this way.
My kids do it and they're like, you're doing it wrong, you're so
Inspire Inclusion. Yeah.
It's because I didn't know electricity today, and I think it is. I think how long but that was awesome. That honestly, that was really lovely. Really enlightening. Great fun.